Hi guys, welcome back. I thought I'd give you an update on the progress on the tractor slash Go Kart project. I got a few things done on it this weekend. Unfortunately, my time was stolen by another project. I had another project come up that demanded my attention. So before I get to showing you what I got done on this one this weekend, let me show you what happened to my other tractor. So on Saturday, I was out mowing the lawn with my old buddy here, when all of a sudden he started to feel a little ill and decided to chuck a few parts. Let me show you what happened. So while I was mowing, from this side of the engine, I heard a pop and then a jingling sound and then a slight screeching noise, then a loud bang, and this whole cover jumped sideways. So I immediately shut off the engine and brought the tractor into the garage. When I started checking it out, what I found was that the bolt at the bottom of the generator broke. So the first pop I heard was that bolt breaking, and then the jingling sound was the bolt falling down, probably got tossed around by the shaft on the mower deck. But when that bolt broke, the generator bent a little bit, and that's a pretty big unit. Well, what happened was the belt popped off of it, and then the belt got wrapped around the pulley on the engine, and it tried to stuff that belt between the pulley and the covers. Well, something had to give, so what happened was the pulley let go. There was one bolt that was still in place, even though it had ripped that tab wide open. These two tabs, that one had ripped half of the tab off, and that one just completely destroyed that part of the pulley. When these two broke, it also broke the heads off the two bolts. So I had to drill the two bolts out of the flywheel, replace that pulley, replace the belt, replace the broken bolt underneath, and there was further damage. When this whole assembly came out, this cover is bolted to that cover really well. It's got a few places that it bolts on like that. Well, that cover bolts to the head. That one bolts right down to the head, and what happened, the bolt hole that's in the head underneath that bolt snapped right off. So, because of one bolt on the generator, I had to replace the belt, the pulley, the head gasket, and the head. So that's what consumed my Saturday afternoon, was pulling this thing all apart, removing all the broken pieces, and then replacing them all. Luckily, I had every single part I needed. I had a new belt, a new head gasket, a replacement head, and another pulley. So I got it all back up and running, and I was able to finish mowing my lawn in the morning on Sunday. So now that that one's all taken care of, then I got on to that project. Now I'll show you what I did on that one. Like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of time. All I had was Sunday afternoon. So what I could do, I did. I'll show you that now. Okay, so I got the engine all bolted in. One bolt hole lined up. I had to drill out the other three bolt holes for where this engine needed to be. This tractor was never designed for this engine. So I had to drill out some holes and make my own bolt pattern on that engine plate. Luckily it fell where there was plenty of metal, so the engine's in there good and secure. I also changed out the pull start handle, because like I told you in the last video, this engine came off of a snowblower, and it came with that massive handle that you can start this engine up even with a big pair of mittens on. So I put a regular one on there. And I also worked on the throttle and a few things. We'll start with the throttle. We'll start up here. in the dash, I put in a new control unit. This one's just it's an easier to use than the original one. The original one was just a small lever that stuck through the dash. This one, it kicks out to the side, and it's got a nice ball to grab hold of. So I set that up in the dash, ran the cabling all under the tray, through the front of the tray, and down here. So when I put it down here, I ended up putting a cable clamp right onto that original bracket for the throttle. And let me actually just move that throttle up so we can see that a little better. And as you can see, I left all the original parts. I just pulled the knob off of it. So when I move the throttle up on the dash, that arm goes up and down. I suppose you can think of it as like a safety feature, because right on the side of the tractor, you could just push this down and it would shut the throttle off. But I added in, like I said, that cable clamp. I set this cable up, and there was already a hole right in that arm. So I just reshaped the cable, stuck it in the arm, and I had to loosen up all the guts of that assembly, because that assembly had some lock positions so that when you push this up, it would lock it into full throttle, lock it into idle, and it also had an off position that it locked into. So I had to free this all up so that the cable won't bind, because the throttle is kept in place. Wherever I set the throttle, it's kept in place by that unit on the dashboard. That has a lot of resistance on it to keep it set. So this had to move freely, otherwise that cable would end up binding if it was holding back on each end. So that was all taken care of. Then I moved on to the air cleaner setup. If you can see that, the face of the carburetor ended up really close to the sidewall of the grill. I went digging through the parts pile, and I came up with that elbow. And that air cleaner box is from the original engine that was in this tractor. I just attach it to that elbow, and it puts it straight up in the air like that. And it also makes it so that all the air intake is from way up high. So I can ride this thing through some deep puddles and not worry about swamping the engine. So now, that air cleaner, the only issue is that it's going to stick out and it hits where the meshwork is going to go over that opening in the grill. So I'm going to have to put a bulge in that meshwork in order for the air cleaner to have enough room in there. That's alright. I'd rather have a good air cleaner set up on it and have a dent in the grill than have a nice pretty grill and insufficient filtering. So that's all set up. That's ready to go. I then worked on the exhaust. I had to change out the exhaust because this is the muffler that was on this engine, and as you can see, it's way too big to fit in there. So, again, I went digging in that good old parts pile, and I found two old engines. One of them had that elbow on it, and the other had the muffler. Originally, the exhaust is supposed to go out right through that half moon there. But on the original engine, the exhaust is on this port. So if it was on this port on this engine, then I could have just bent this all down and this whole setup would have lined up there. But for some reason on this 8-horse, it's set up opposite what the 7 was, and the exhaust is on this side. So this was the best setup I could come up with. The pipe is going to end up blowing through the meshwork, which I know in time it's going to burn the paint, but in time it's going to turn it black. And the paint job on the outside is black, so I'm not worried about it. In time, after a while, it'll blend right in and you'll never notice that that exhaust is blowing through the grill. I look at it as a pretty good point because none of the hot exhaust is going to be on the outside. There'll be a warm spot on the grill, but that's it. It's in a spot you'll never lean against, nobody will ever touch it, and it won't burn any branches or anything if I park this thing. So, after I finished working on the exhaust, I moved on towards the belt. So let's head over to that belt and check that out. So I got rid of the original stamped steel pulley that was on this engine. I found a nice cast iron pulley for it. This one has a couple of set screws in it, and I'm also going to have that bolt that's also going to help hold that pulley on. And with the engine set up where it is, let me put some tension on that belt. And that pulley set where it is, look at that, it lines up really nice. Oh, somebody's calling out on the radio. That belt lines up nice with both pulleys. Alright, now since we're talking about the belt, let me show you the clutch setup. You can see that pulley up in the air. And you might even be able to see already that it's not where it's supposed to be. Because you see it up here? I'm trying to look through the camera lens. See that? Watch what happens when I put it down into place. Go ahead. It goes right by the belt. Let's come around this side and I'll show you. That clutch setup comes from the original engine from this tractor. And like I said earlier, this tractor was not designed for this engine. This engine has a deeper crankcase than what the 7 horsepower had. So where that being that it bolts to the starter bolts, or where a starter would go, it's too far in. So it ends up passing on the inside of the belt. So I don't want to ruin this whole setup because that's a really good assembly. And I know I'm going to get more of these tractors in the future. It's a common part to wear out. There's a few places on this that wear out. So I'm going to save this whole assembly, and I'm going to make my own clutch setup for this. I am going to use the original linkage that came with the tractor and hooked up to that assembly. I'm going to use that and make my own setup. So that's how I'm going to take care of that issue. Let's see. What else do we have going on this? I think the last thing for this weekend is going to be a test run. Let's see if I put, let me have a light over here. If I put some carburetor cleaner down the intake, let's see if this thing will actually run. I checked it, it has good spark, it feels like it has good compression, so it should start. So let's see what it does. I'm going to set you up on the quieter camera and put you behind it, and let's see what it does. Alright, I already took the air cleaner off so that I can just spray some carb cleaner down in the carburetor. We'll fire this thing over. Actually, I'm going to do this right-handed so that I can squirt some more in there if it runs. This is the first time running. I did check it for spark, but I haven't checked it for run yet. Well, I say it runs. Actually ran pretty good too, didn't it? Probably should have tightened that bolt on that crankshaft. Look at it spinning out of there. Put that back in. Revs right up nice too. Can't wait till it actually runs on gas. But it lives. It runs. The engine's good. I didn't see any blue smoke either, did you? You had the best point of view, pointing right at that exhaust. Alright, I guess that's it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to be working on the clutch. And what else? Probably adjusting the brakes. Oh, and a fuel system. Gotta get a fuel. Gotta get fuel to that engine. Alright, that's it for now. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.